started at 7 to teach him changes, and he could not get changes. I mean, and he's a good horse, and we're going, oh man, is this the one that's such a great horse that can't do changes, right? But you know what? Because he was 7 when we got at it, it gave us the time to take our time to think of a way to make this work. You know what he does now? 9 perfect 2s and about 10 or 12 perfect 1s, and she's going to have a Grand Prix horse next year. But we knew, at 7, 8 years old, we need to know those things. You know what I mean? So we know what to do going. So it gives us time to come up with a method. You understand what I mean? I want you to have the time to have a method, And sometimes one way doesn't work. And we have to peck away at it for a little bit. And then we look at another way. And sooner or later it comes to you. I have an 8-year-old that I think is a Allegro. Probably the best horse, all things considered, I've ever ridden. And you know what? I never made him even do one flying change. I've had him since 4. Never made him do one change till 7 and a half. Too much movement. Too much movement. A little sketchy in the whole way he is and who he is. And at 7 and a half, no, I started a little bit, and he couldn't quite get them. He was the same age as her, and I was 8. And I really didn't, in earnest, start to work on changes until February in Florida. And up until June, he was still not really doing clean changes, okay? But I just kept pecking away. I now have perfect changes, 4s, 3s, 7 2s, and it's easy. And because I could find a method, I don't want anybody taking things on too early. Like I always say, never teach a horse flying changes before it's 6. I see people teaching 4-year-olds changes, and it is the stupidest thing. The stupidest thing. Never teach a 4-year-old horse or a 5-year-old horse. A little bit, maybe the end of the year they're 5, they can learn to start learning changes, but certainly never before, and never teach any horse under the age of 6 or 7 ever. It's just stupid. It gives them all the wrong ideas. I make this comparison with teaching really young horses difficult stuff, and people think I've lost my mind till I justify what I'm going to say. The reason we don't teach really young horses, like 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, hard stuff like piaffe and changes and stuff, is because the same reason that kids cannot watch violent video games or porno. Because they don't have the maturity to understand. A kid can't understand violent video games. He thinks that's a way of life when you're 9 years old. You know what I mean? Like shooting and killing and cutting heads off is okay. As an adult, you can at least go, it's just a game, it's just a movie, it's not real. You know what I mean? But when you're 9, you can't figure that out. You can't make that decision-making process is not possible. You know what I mean? If a kid looks at porno or something like that at 10 years old, this kid doesn't realize, kid at 10 is supposed to think girls are playmates and friends and family members and like that, and they don't look at a girl like that anymore. It messes kids up. It's bad, 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 bad. You can't handle it. You're not mature enough. You know what I'm saying? And that's horses with piaffe. You teach a young horse piaffe, he thinks your legs mean dance up and down, and they don't mean go forward. Now you've lost the only thing that you got in your favor riding a horse. Right? Simple with young horses. Legs mean forward. This means left lead canter, and we left lead canter till we walk or trot, right? And we right lead canter till we walk or trot. Teach a 4-year-old changes, you can't make him canter properly. Every time you move, he changes. It's a mistake. It's kids and violent video games and stuff like that. It's imprint. All horses are about imprint. Kids and horses are people and horses are creatures of imprint. You find it's interesting too how some of the highest end dressage trainers listen to some of the other people that are not in their field. Like, I think John Lyons and Pat Borelli have all kinds of great stuff you can take from them. All kinds of great stuff. They're horsemen. They're horsemen. So I want you to pick her up now and trot with her. Interesting when the wedding was in Kentucky in 2010, when it was in Lexington, Kira Kirkland, my Allie trains also Kira Kirkland, and they lost Kira to know where the hell she was. She was down at the All-Tech Coliseum watching rain. And then she's out with the Rainers talking to these big Texas guys, Rainers, because she says, how do they make a horse so responsive to the rain? Interesting. So Kira was down trying to learn from the Rainers, learn something, because she's so smart, you know? She just wants to learn. You know, nobody has more prizes in the world than Kira Kirkland. She's trying to learn from the Rainers. Now that's a smart lady. Nicole, trot on a little bit. Trot on a little bit. I want you to keep that meter to your trot. She goes along, she trots and she's beautiful, and she wants to trot like, you know, 1, 2, 1, 2. I want you to take the pace up a tiny bit. I want you to trot like 1. No, not running. I want you to have a quicker footfall, but not a bigger gait. Circle here. It's like her go-to is when you go to quicken your gait up, she runs a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a good thing. The mare wants to go so much, but it has to be controllable. I always tell people, like, small tour, inner one is like NASCAR. It's momentum. You know how those real good inner one horses fly over the ring with big floating gates and all that? It's all good. Every one of those steps come along, never got the Grand Prix. Because Grand Prix, like, inner one is about momentum. Big floating open gates. Grand Prix is about energy management. Grand Prix is shorten the horse, high energy, lengthen the horse, let the energy out, package the energy, open it up. So when I look at her, I think she's a fabulously nice horse, and my hope is that you girls end up with an incredible Grand Prix horse at the end of, you know, when it's all said and done, right? But I know that in order to ride Grand Prix, you have to have a horse who understands how to put energy in its gates without adding miles an hour necessarily. Sometimes you have to put energy in the gate and add miles an hour, but sometimes you have to put energy in that's not miles an hour. That's the tricky part of riding. There's different trots, different gaits. Make a circle. Also, don't go in the corners here, Nicole. There's no corners on a circle. Sit her back a little bit. Look at me. Look at me. I told you already, you sit a horse beautifully. You have a beautiful seat way of sitting a horse. Don't let your arms get fixed. Stay loose. Stay loose. Keep the horse elastic. Keep the horse loose. You're allowed to play with your right wrist a little. You're allowed to play with your left wrist a little. You're allowed to move the contact around. You're allowed to change her frame. When it comes time to ride Grand Prix, girl, let me tell you, you're going to have days you ride your frame up and days you ride your frame down. Some days you have to let their neck out. Sometimes you have to bring their neck in. Sometimes in Grand Prix, you have to shorten the horse on 3, you shorten the horse for 5 steps and you open him up for the next 4. That's how Grand Prix goes. And they learn that a little bit as kids, to be adaptable. That's okay. That's why you're doing this. That's why you're doing this. So you teach her that she can trot shorter or bigger. She can trot open or closed. She can sit back or she can reach down. They need those tools in their life or they don't make it. Trot on, add a little energy, but keep her in front of you. Good. Yeah? And then I like it if you took her once in a while, take a little half out where you go, and you sit like this and try to get that pole to come up. If she was 6, I would say I wouldn't quite get there yet, but because she's 8, she's starting to be ready to learn to sit back over her hocks a bit, not just trot nicely. She trots already beautifully. I like that. Now soften your hand and let the mare carry herself. Sometimes you have to just subside the pressure over your arm. Just let your hand follow the horse just a little bit. You don't like throw a loop in the rein, but you let the horse follow your hand. Let your hand follow the horse. Now bring her nose a little bit up and in and make her nose follow your hand. So sometimes I do this. Sometimes I go, okay, you come up to me, and sometimes I say, okay, now I go out to you. That's training the Grand Prix horse. I don't want her to do Grand Prix. I don't want her to have the intensity of Grand Prix. I don't want her to do the movements of Grand Prix. But I want her to start to learn to think like an upper-level horse, like a Grand Prix horse, not like an inner one horse. That's largely the reason I don't show my horses small tour. I want them to think like Grand Prix horses. Good. 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 Terrific. Nice. You're able to touch her with a stick and her hind legs move. She carries herself a little bit. Good. Walk. Change rein. I'm guessing you all know who Adrian Lyle is. Mm-hmm. Well, Adrian Lyles represented the United States in the London Olympic Games and the Normandy Way, right? Adrian has the distinct advantage of being a 29-year-old kid who's lived with Debbie McDonald for the last, 11 years, okay? Adrian never is allowed to ride bad because Debbie watches her every cotton picking day, okay? There's a reason this girl's so good. But that wizard horse, if you think about it, never did St. George Inner One. She rode in Printina Cup and then Grand Prix. Interestingly enough. Now, not everybody can do that. Some horses, Damon Hill went through the whole thing, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, Piaf Border, not Piaf Border Prize, Nürburgring Pokal, St. George Inner One Grand Prix. He did the whole thing. But other horses did, Sometimes, I only get my horses riding Grand Prix. I have two. First of all, I do it because I don't want to ride the other levels, and I've been doing this a million years, and I don't need to learn to ride shows. I know how to do that. And I'm pretty good at getting horses ready. I have one other theory about Grand Prix versus small tour, and people don't, and when I say it, people don't go, oh, I never thought of that. What do you do in St. George Inner One? You come up the last center line and halt at X. Come up the last center line and halt at X. That's what you do, right? In Grand Prix, you come up the center line, last center line, and the opposite X. I do not want my future horse learning that last center line at X we stop. I never halt at X at the end of any time I ride. In the beginning of my practice halts, but at the end I want him to think that the last center line always means keep going. I don't want to imprint him that it means stop and then de-imprint him later. So it's working. I generally have a really fine piaffe at the end of the test on everything I ride. It's working. That's one of my reasons. But anyway, trot along a little bit, but I want you to think about it's just skill building. Skill building. I like that. You brought her pole up a little bit, got her hind legs under, and then you soften and let her trot on and kind of have her own connection for a little bit. And then you bring her together again, and then you let her out again. And Robert Dover calls it the rubber band exercise. The rubber band exercise is go out, come back, go out. I call it the accordion exercise. Get longer, get shorter, get longer, get shorter. Why? Because it's exactly what you need at Grand Prix. Open and closed, open and closed, open and closed. Little bits of it. Sometimes we aren't even going to see it. You're just going to feel it. Good. And then soften your hand and let the mare carry herself. Nice. And then build a little trot, a little rhythm. Build a little quicker rhythm, but not a bigger stride. Not a bigger stride. Don't want her running with you. Keep her nose up. Build a little rhythm. Build a little rhythm. Build a little rhythm. And touching with that stick is a super good idea. Not hitting her, just touching her. So she learns to understand what the stick means. You heard my story about Princess Allegria. 6 months of touching her with a stick, double barrel over the top of her head. The day she stopped double barreling over the top of her head, I could ride her Grand Prix. 3 months later, I won Devon. She's a lovely horse, but she had to learn how to get her hind end under, and I've only ever ridden 2 horses in my life, Neruda and Saphir, that could get their hind legs under. I didn't need the stick to help me. The other 25 I rode Grand Prix, all I needed the stick to help me. You know who Rudolph Zeilinger is? Rudy is one of the top horse trainers in the world, Made a world champion. The guy knows about International Grand Prix. And he rides in that he's the last great student of Schulteis, And the Schulteis system of riding, Rudolph Zeilinger cannot train a horse to do training level test 1 without a stick. It's his way. He doesn't whack the horse with it. He just sits there, and he sits on his horse, and he goes tap, 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 and he builds the horse using its hind leg. He teaches them to sit down from the stick, and he teaches them to get rhythm from the stick, and he teaches them to bend their hind legs from the stick so that he builds muscle memory. He can't train training level test 1 without a stick. It's working. His horses have won every big show in the world. The WAG, top 3 in the Olympics, the World Cup. Good. I like your half ball. Now you got to make her continue to go a little bit forward through that half ball. I'm not concerned one little bit about the stuff. You'll ride the stuff fine. Movements are easy. When you're a good rider, movements are easy. 1-tempies aren't easy. Canter pirouettes, piaffe passage, 1-tempies, those things aren't easy. Those are things we really have to work on and train them to do. But shoulder ins and half passes are not hard stuff with a horse that takes your hand, your leg, your seat. You can energize the horse, bring the horse back, let the horse out, make the horse flex, move the horse off your leg. Those things are easy. Go ahead and do a long wall and do a half wall shoulder in. Mostly importantly that she goes uphill and steps up in front of your right leg to your left hand. Good. Little more trot. Yep. Without running downhill, so she takes a half vault as she takes your leg. Okay, do straighten in the corner. And then through the corner. And then through the corner, and then a shoulder in again. If she wants to pull down on you, take her back to your hips and let go. Half vault, let go. Close your right leg. Close your right leg. Ride it with a little more trot. Little bit. Little bit. If she leans, look at me. If she leans down and pulls on you, take her back. Sit her back to your seat, let go. Half vault's 1 to 2 steps. Rock the horse back, let go. Rock the horse back, let go. Good. Circle here, let her trot forward. Pick that pole a little in front of you. A little more up in front of you. Don't let her lean easy. Don't hit her that hard. Tap her 4 times instead of 1 big one. Touch her. Tick, 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 tick. Yep, touch her. Touch her till you feel her hind legs up in your hand. There. There. And she does a little bit that girl thing, don't touch me, and the tail goes a little bit. She has to learn that it's okay. Touch, touch, touch. Touch the stick. She doesn't have to be perfect. She only has to learn how to accept stuff. This, I'm telling you, there's a lot of horses I've met in my life that I sure as heck wish somebody had given the rider this lesson when they were 7 and 8. Got to be able to influence your horse. It's too late to do when they're 11. I have one in my barn right now that's 11 that I actually think will learn it, but man, it's been a battle. Oh. Good. Trot. Trot. Got to go a little more forward. Got to get in front of your leg, not pull down in your hand. Got to accept your stick and carry yourself. Nice. Nice. Sit her back and touch your stick a little once in a while. And sit her back. Come. You have to stick forward into your hand. Riding from your leg into the hand. Uphill into the hand. A little bit uphill into the hand. Good. Add a little trot. That's fine. I don't care about that. I don't care about that. That's all I'm seeing. Pooping in front of people. Trot. 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 Tell her she's good. Yep. Tell her she's good again. Now sit her back and make a little half vault. Sit her back. Like you're going to walk. Let go. Let go. Give the hand and ride her forward. Yep. Yep. No, let her cover some ground. Let her trot and cover some ground. Good. Not running. Not running on your hand. She has to learn how to carry. She's not going to learn it in 2 days. She's going to learn it in 2 years. Good. Beautiful trot. Beautiful trot. And walk. Good. And she can have a little break for a second. She's wonderful. She's wonderful. There's nothing I see that I don't love about the horse. She's great. So much of this stuff is buried in skill building and the way the horse accepts the aids. Somebody has on the bulletin board in there a bunch of those articles of mine in the Chronicle or whatever it is, and one of them is the one that they did about Mr. Poulin, about all of his Olympian students, right? And I just read it because I couldn't remember what I told the lady, and I now it came back to me, and I said the whole thing was about what he taught me in 13 comes back every day about acceptance of the aids is the key to success in riding. Acceptance of the aids. That your horse goes from a squeezing leg, yields from a pushing leg, bends from a flexing wrist, comes back from a gathering hand, sits down from a driving seat, all that stuff. That's it. After that, when they do that, anybody can teach her to be Grand Prix. Anybody. When the horse accepts the aids perfectly or correctly, you know. But oh man, you can't imagine the stuff I run into. You can't imagine what I run into. And from not Olympic level riders, but from riders who are really good riders, who just nobody ever taught them this black stallion that I got. I just showed somebody here a little video of him piaffing. This horse didn't have a clue 6 months ago. Oh! All he did was try to buck me off every time I touched him. Now he does a really gonna be an international class piaffer about an 8. But man, I say to her all the time, the girl who owns him will send him to me, I said, girl, you sure are lucky we got at this now. Because if this had gone on 6 more months with a horse that you touch with a stick and his reaction isn't only slow down and kick out, he even kicks out when he lands He doesn't even land like kick out the square of hind legs. He lands with his hind feet out here. I'm like, is this the most defiant son of a gun in history or what? And 6 months later, we're doing pretty good. But boy, what about, oh man, all because nobody ever told her you have to be able to touch your horse with a stick, and he needs to sit down and go a little bit more forward. You know, a little. We don't want a horse. I don't want a horse that I touch with a stick and he goes from a 6 trot to a 12. I can't do anything with that, right? That's just running away. What I want is the horse I sit down in, he's in a 6 trot, I touch him with a stick, he gives me a 6.5. Or I touch, he's doing a 6, I touch him a little harder, he gives me a 7. I do not want 6.